Ty. He's a good friend.
Turn your mic up. No one can hear you.
I'm sorry. I don't know why it was down to begin with. How about now?
Oh, that is mucho bueno.
Great. Apologies. Obviously, we're live from Lancaster and Lidditz, Pennsylvania. Instagram at 4th and 1 Podcast. I'm your man, Fancy Trash Can, sitting next to, as always, Captain Boring. We were not so boring this weekend. If you missed the live stream, we had a great time. Shout out to everybody who was in the chat. Carlos, Robert, Mom, Dad.
And that's it.
But we had a great time. We covered the 12 o'clock game, so we're briefly going to do that. If you want to, follow along with us, you can go back, and that's live on... that's live up on YouTube, 4th and 1 Podcast. And we're going to just roll right along. The 12 o'clock games last week, a few surprises, a few not. Do we have an update on... Where is that? Oh my gosh, it's all the way down here. Kansas's quarterback, they lost. Number 19 Kansas lost to number 17 TCU that week by one touchdown. We were all very sad.
Yes. They were one of... Well, actually, they hit the over. No, we don't have an update. I'm guessing, though...
He's unlikely to play versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, he was in a sling. But Mr. Jason Bean came in and did pretty well. After he threw that one interception, things looked pretty dire there for a second. And then he kind of was ripping and gripping, spinning that magic bean, if you will. And, just fell short because Quentin Johnston had himself a game. He came in with 14 catches on the year. He had 14 catches in that game, 262 yards.
206 yards.
206 yards. There was a 6, there was a 2. Almost got it right. And a tutty that was the grab of the day, over the shoulder, over the wrong shoulder, absolute baller play by Quentin Johnston. TCU, undefeated Big 12 play. They are going, or they get Oklahoma State this coming weekend. They might be one of my 5 biggest games.
Oklahoma State beating Texas Tech that weekend. Pretty handily last weekend, Other 12 o'clock game, Texas A&M loses to Alabama on
that was nighttime.
I'm looking at week 6, October 4 to October 12, Texas A&M. Did they sort these alphabetically then?
Probably. That's what they normally do. Well, mine isn't. Mine's like, I'm looking at week 7. LOL.
Well, that's why. Okay, so Texas A&M played Alabama. I still think that game was at night. I think you're
It is.
wrong.
It was at night. It was at 8 p.m.
They lose on, I'm just going over the big, well, I guess we should cover that because that's what we said we were going to, because mine decided not to sort by time like they normally are. So we covered Michigan, Indiana pulls away in the second half, pitches a shutout. For the 12 o'clock. Tennessee decides that they decided to just be good all of the sudden and blows out LSU. The score was not even as close. It was really 40-0, but 40-13 was the final. And I'm trying to remember what was the other game that was on when we were watching.
I can tell you here. It was Texas, Oklahoma.
Texas roaring back under Quinn Ewers, absolutely blows out Oklahoma. I'm trying to see if I can find it here.
Well,
it was a lot to a little.
It was 49-0. Really wasn't that close. It was the first shutout of Oklahoma since like the 90s, I think. They had scored at least a touchdown since 96, I want to say. Biggest shutout ever in the Red River rivalry. Biggest score differential ever in the Red River rivalry. So a couple things. First of all, Oklahoma is on a very steep downward trajectory. So I feel bad for Boomer Sooner because they might be looking to switch coaches if this kind of continues. However, maybe they can right the ship here. Also, Texas looks like a top 10 team with Quinn Ewers as quarterback. They did it against Alabama in a loss. They were winning before he got knocked out. Now they kind of are hung around with Hudson Card, and now they just absolutely pound Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Now, Oklahoma's defense is pretty bad, but still, they look like a top 10 team, and this is why the 12-team playoff format is so important, because with 2 losses, Texas is probably out of the college football playoff altogether. However, come the end of the season, they might be one of the best, you can make an argument, best 4 teams in the country. So that is why the 12-team playoff is so important, at least in my mind. But that's all I got to say on Texas and Oklahoma. Maryland-Purdue also was a fascinating game.
That was the other one.
Okay. It came down to the wire. It was high-scoring, 29-31, kind of even throughout. Purdue had 3 turnovers, still won the game by 2. And Maryland tied the game on a 2-point conversion with 25 seconds left. Had an offensive penalty. They had to retry it, and then it didn't pan out on their second attempt. So Purdue goes to 4-2. Maryland, unfortunately, loses all ability to host College Game Day or have the chance to when Ohio State comes knocking in a few weeks.
Okay, a few of the wrap-ups here as we kind of get going. First of all, Appalachian State lost to Texas State. I feel like I have to say that. So talk about a steep decline as we kind of monitor the Fun Belt. And UTSA is not going to make their 7.5 after dropping this week by 3. Oh, wait, no, they did win. Oh, I read that wrong. Win! Yes! Win! Meep!
And also, James Madison, as we continue to
I was just about to bring them up.
Number 25 in the nation, boy!
And reminders, this is their first year going from FCS to FBS. They are undefeated, and guys, these aren't like close games like UTSA was at the end of the year. These have been pretty handled victories.
Domination.
Being the only FBS team, being the only Sun Belt team currently ranked at number 25. Beating out the likes of North Carolina, Baylor, and their rivals, Coastal Carolina, which they'll get at the end of the year. So, Makai, new AP polls come out, drops Alabama 2 spaces from number 1 to number 3, puts Ohio State at number 2, puts Georgia at number 1, Clemson back in the top 5 after Michigan drops 1 spot, and not Boomer Sooner, Rocky Top.
There it is.
Up at number 6, climbs 2 spots. Does this top 10 look right to you?
Yeah,
that's the question I was going to...
Well, number 1 is wrong.
I would have put Ohio State.
Wrong. Absolutely. Ohio State's been the best team in the country since like week 2.
Yeah.
Why are we still messing around here? Between the level of competition that they played early on in Notre Dame and how they've been dominant on both sides of the ball the whole way through, no matter what level of competition they're playing, Ohio State is the clear-cut number 1. They are the best team in the country by far, in my opinion. Now, Georgia should be number 2. Bama should be number 3. After 3, I don't care how you rank 4 through 10. I really do not. Because they will all work out. It'll all work itself out. You want to put Michigan at 6, you want to put Michigan at 7, you want to put Tennessee at 4, however, that's fine. My bigger problem is that the committee seems to
This is still AP.
This is AP. So the committee that ranks AP is that they are justifying Georgia being 1 by ranking Oregon, a team that they just demolished in week 1, 13. So they're saying because they beat the 13th best team in the nation, they're better than Ohio State. When in reality, Notre Dame, they're 3-2 now, or maybe even 4-2. But guess what? Notre Dame's on the upward trajectory, ladies and gentlemen. Notre Dame's looking good. They got BYU this week. They win that. I believe they are 4-2 with 4 straight wins. They're starting to get that offense clicking a little more. That defense has been dominant. All but the second game against Marshall. That was a little wake-up call for them. And the first place votes, 32 for Georgia. Ohio State is 20. Alabama has 11. There are more. The gap for first place votes is closer 2-3 than 1-2, and that is asinine to me. It should be 30. If you're going to rank Ohio State 2, they better be 1 point behind Georgia. I don't understand the people who are ranking Ohio State lower than Georgia and what they are not seeing. Ohio State's defense is legit. Ohio State's defense is much improved, which sucks for the Maize and Blue, because the only reason Michigan really won last year, you remember their defense gave up 27 points. They pushed them around in the second half. They chewed clock in the second half. They ran the ball like crazy in the second half. They threw the ball 4 times in the second half last year against Ohio State. Not doing that this year against this Jim Knowles defense. I am sorry. Ohio State, unfortunately, is the best team in the country, followed by the 2 SEC schools. Rank them however you wish. And then 4 through 10, whatever you want to do.
Alrighty. Well, that puts SEC with... And I didn't pull up the rankings because I was trying.
In the top 10? You mean in the top 10?
Yeah, it puts 4 teams in the top 10.
Yes.
Micaiah, UCLA 6-0.
Yeah.
Ranked at 11. Yay or nay?
Yeah, I mean they're on the outside, kind of looking in. I don't mind where they're at 11 at all. They had a good win over a quality Utah team, and so they jumped this past weekend. They kind of really dominated them. The problem I have with UCLA is still their defense. They gave up a lot of points. Yeah, they beat them by 10. And they had a pick six. Utah had a pick 6 at the end, so really it was 25-42 was the final. That is... You're giving up a decent amount of points. Now, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Chip Kelly in that fifth-year offense is finally starting to click, and they're finally starting to move. But, I mean, it's going to come down to USC, UCLA right now.
There it is. Makai, did you see this? He's in the news yet again for being only an FCS coach. Deion Sanders somehow getting gypped a handshake.
Yeah, so he comes in, he beats
Alabama State.
Alabama State.
26-12.
Yeah, they go in, they go for like the bro hug, the handshake bro hug. And the coach is like, I don't want any part of your bro hug. You come in, I'm standing at the 50-yard line pregame, the whole game, or even whole pregame. You don't talk to me at all. You go around and you talk to every single one of my players. You do a lap like you're a celebrity, which he is, but you don't talk to me at all, and then you want to pretend like we're friends after the game? No. GTFO. I hope that we get them at his place next year on homecoming, and we beat their ass. And that's what he said. Love it. Deion Sanders, he hopes that Deion Sanders doesn't take a Power 5 job next year, and so here we go.
Which he might, but he's really liking coaching at Jackson State, because after the season they had last year, I'm sure a couple people came to him for his job.
Well, it would be nice if Jackson State was allowed in the FCS playoffs.
Well, isn't that they're allowed, but they decide not to, I think, or something like that?
No, the conference that he's in, the SWAC conference that he's in, does not participate.
Right, but does not participate. That's the SWAC's decision, not
correct.
NCAA's decision.
Not whatever. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty racist, but correct.
Just because they're mostly HBCUs. I just had to. Okay, so we're 15 minutes into this pod. We got a full slate of games.
Full slate!
And I mostly want to start off with the big noon kickoff game.
Wait, timeout question.
Yeah.
Can I just tell everyone one crazy non-offensive stat that Iowa produced last week?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
All right. So they're taking on Illinois. Illinois now is 5-1, only lost to Indiana where they had a bunch of turnovers a couple weeks ago. They beat Iowa. They're 5-1. Michigan gets them on senior day right before Ohio State.
Also, don't forget, they're ranked now, 24 in the country.
They are 24 in the country. This is how one of Iowa's possessions went. They go 3 and out for -6 yards.
Nice.
Okay. They punt the football.
Mm-hmm.
They then Illinois muffs the football. Iowa recovers. They then go 4 plays for another negative 6 yards, because I guess there was a penalty or whatever. Kick a field goal. They went on a 7-play negative 12-yard drive, covering 75 yards and kicked a field goal.
Because got 3 points out of it.
Yeah. And this is why Iowa's terrible.
And that is why Iowa's terrible. And that coach
was
is
my
just
favorite.
waiting to get. He's just waiting to get fired. Hey, Matt Rule's available now, so you can go get him.
Matt Rule is available. Got fired from the Carolina Panthers. For those of you who don't know, listen, that Nebraska job and Matt Rule. So Matt Rule rebuilt Temple. Temple's awful. Was awful before he got there. Was ever awful since he left. Baylor went through the whole sexual rape allegations.
And he kept them consistent.
Lost all but one game the first year, came back, almost won the Big 12, then did win the Big 12, or almost, made it to the Big 12.
I'm checking here for you.
Then went to the NFL. So he's now rebuilt 2 programs in 2 different conferences, didn't pan out in the NFL. Give him a shot. I think Nebraska, I don't know, besides Urban Meyer, I don't know who your better option is. And
they went 1-11 his first year.
Right, in his first year.
You
then
said you flipped that around. So just want to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
The
No, they only won 1 game their first year. And then their second year, he won how many? 8?
7. Yep,
7.
You were right about the rest of it. I was just making sure we were all on the... Yeah.
So...
Yo, this is whoever edited this Wikipedia page... It was like, so for his NFL, he went 5-11, then 5-12, so finished third in the NFC South, finished 4th in the NFC South, fired.
Also, I just saw this in the AP Top 25.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky and Texas are sharing the number 22 spot.
Wait, they can do that?
I didn't know.
No, I think I don't think, yes, they are because of the amount of points or picks that they got.
So Texas technically is 23, probably.
They're tied for 22nd, and then you skip.
And then you skip 23 and go to 24 at Illinois, and then JMU. Story of the year. Besides
my hair is great right now. Take a look at that.
It looks great. Besides Kansas, JMU has got to be the story of the year. For those of you that don't know, also, Kansas is not out of this Big 12 race yet.
Oh, no.
Only their first loss. Top 2 get in, obviously, to the Big 12 title game. Could be a rematch. TCU, Kansas. That would be exciting.
Listen, you look at JMU, and I was wrong. I said in the previous that they played 2 FCS opponents. They're playing, unless they played the FCS opponents before that, they're playing no FCS opponents. I thought Texas
State.
Oh, that Norfolk State is. They're playing 1 FCS opponent.
Yeah.
You are correct. So they had a 44-7 win against Middle Tennessee, who I believe is in the American, and I'm trying to remember where Middle Tennessee is. I think
Middle Tennessee.
They're Conference USA.
And
they're
routed Miami.
Yep, 45-31.
Yep.
They are at the end. They're 0-2 in conference play, but they're 3-3 right now. Then they routed Norfolk State. They came back and scored, 32 unanswered points? Didn't they score all of their points?
It was like 20 unanswered points, yeah.
Yeah. At Appalachian State to upset Appalachian State. The week after Appalachian State upset Texas A&M. Blew out Texas State. Blew out Arkansas State. They're averaging right around 45 points a game right now and holding their opponents to about 15.
Yeah.
Those are rounded numbers. They take on Georgia Southern, who is a bottom-of-the-table 3-3 team in the Sun Belt Eastern Conference. They got Marshall, Louisville, Old Dominion, Georgia State, and Coastal Carolina left. Of course, Coastal Carolina they're tied with right now. All of their challenges are in front of them. They got a big FBS school in Louisville who's middle of the road, so very easily beatable for them. Old Dominion's been hot and cold, just like me in betting. I went 1 for 4 this week, so Old Dominion's been hot and cold. Georgia State has been showing up to games. Marshall beat Notre Dame, and Coastal Carolina basically runs the Sun Belt right now. So if they can win out and then go to a bowl game...
Well, they don't get to. That's the thing.
Oh my gosh, no they don't. I forgot about
Yeah.
They didn't play 12 games.
Yeah.
Because they took the one FCS school.
Well, no. It's because that any FCS team that makes the jump to FBS gets like a 2-year can't go to a bowl thing. It's the dumbest rule of all time. It's the dumbest rule of all time.
I think they should take the winner of the Army-Navy game.
And just
beat them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you do with that? Take the winner of the SCS?
You create a podcast, college football podcast, that's been about 3 years in the making. And then you scream at the top of your lungs how unfair it is that James Madison, an FCS school, might go undefeated and not be able to make a bowl game. That's exactly what you do.
This isn't UCF from 3 years ago. Or 4 years ago, whenever Scott Frost. This is an FCS school, top-tier FCS school, who's coming into their conference so far, playing pretty good teams.
Yep.
Granted, all of them are in front of them. Their challenges are in front of them. And if they go undefeated, i.e. handing it to one of the better group of six, Power Six, whatever they're calling them nowadays, conferences, and handing their ass to them, and basically can step up to them next month and go, who's next?
Yep.
Because they kept their coach.
Yep.
If I'm their coach, I'm staying there.
Yeah, and they're at a great spot in Virginia. That town is very lovely. That stadium is extremely attractive, keeps the noise in. They're in the Fun Belt. They're going to, because of where they are geographically, they're going to be able to recruit pretty well. Sky's the limit, I think, for JMU to elevate the Sun Belt again to the best group of 6 conference.
They're allowing 228 yards a game.
Yeah.
They're allowing under 50 rushing yards a game.
Well, I think that people need to start recognizing the FCS schools as they can compete at this level.
Yeah.
They can compete at this level, and I don't know why the Big 12 doesn't get out and try to go get North Dakota State, who runs the FCS right now. I mean, their main competition is undefeated in the FBS, as in it was JMU.
Yeah.
So here we go.
And you look at North Dakota State, 5-1. Their one loss to, I think, Iowa or Iowa State. Montana 5-0, South Dakota State 5-1, Montana State 5-1, Sacramento State 5-1. 5-0. Those are your top 5 schools. Those are the people who are always in. Jackson State just switched coaches, and now all of a sudden they're high above the. Okay, we'll move on before I get into it and get mad at everybody. Okay, so now big noon kickoff on Fox in Ann Arbor.
Yep.
Number 10, Penn State, going to and taking on Michigan.
Yep.
Number 5. Is this game on your bettings?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
It is. But it is on my bettings.
We're going to talk about it anyway. I'm just curious.
Sure. I'm
J.J. McCarthy leading the Big Ten in passing yards.
Oh, great. No, that's not true. There's
sold
no
on...
way that's true with C.J. Stroud. J.J. McCarthy's leading the nation in completion percentage.
Hold on. I saw it on Michigan's Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm pulling it up.
All right. Well,
while you talk about the game.
All right. Well, I'm pretty miffed that they keep putting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was getting. It's. Oh my gosh. Blake Corum is leading the Big Ten in rushing yards.
He's leading the nation in touchdowns too.
Small dude's good.
Small dude's good. So I'm really miffed that they keep putting these big-time games, on at noon, because big-time games belong at nighttime under lights.
Well, and this is how it works. ABC gets the night games, and Fox decided to make 12 o'clock the big games.
I'm very well aware, and it's working out well for them, so yip-de-doodle day, yip-de-doodle dandy, or however that song goes. Michigan's going to do a maze out. And that's the other thing. Like, if you're going to do a certain kind of color out, do it at night. So figure that out, first of all. I don't like the big noon, but, however, I am kind of happy because when Michigan ends up losing on Saturday, spoiler alert for my picks ahead, I can shake that off and be frustrated during the 3 o'clock games, and then that'll wear off as the day goes along. Penn State and Michigan are almost the identical teams. I have 2 matchups on my betting list where both of the teams are nearly identical. Michigan and Penn State, and for those of you, I went over this on the podcast's Instagram page at 4th and 1 Podcast. Go give us a follow on Instagram. They both want to run the football. They both want to stop the run running the football. So it's really going to come down to, 1, turnovers, who's going to turn the ball over, but more importantly, the secondaries. Which secondary plays better? And I like Penn State's secondary just a tad better because of the high-profile corner that Penn State has in Joey Porter Jr., son of Hall of Fame middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Joey Porter. It's going to be an excellent game. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere. Michigan getting 7 points is much too high. So more on this game to come. Very entertaining. 2 similarly built teams. 2 teams that can win the Big Ten and beat Ohio State under the right conditions, and 2, win a college football playoff game. So, loser gets eliminated, winner advances.
I literally, FanDuel, I couldn't remember the name.
Are you good?
Apparently not. Maybe I'm hungry or something. Who the F knows anymore? I think you're being too... The Michigan I saw against Indiana, I actually am going to throw my 2 cents in here real quick.
Uh-oh.
The Michigan I saw against Indiana is a much different Michigan than you just described against Penn State. Because you had a big force and a big leader in Mike Hart have some sort of event that ended up him at the hospital.
Seizure.
He's now back in Ann Arbor. It was confirmed a seizure?
It was confirmed a seizure.
He had a seizure, taken off the field. Also, not the only guy to get taken off the field after randomly collapsing. There was a guy in the NFL, a Detroit Lion, who also apparently randomly fell over.
Okay, great.
So I hope T's and P's to everybody involved. But you're not acting like they didn't just second half pitch a shutout and put up 21 unanswered points. And by a shutout, I mean like a shutout. They almost threw a perfect game.
The problem I have with Michigan isn't their players. Last year, I had more faith in the coaching staff than the players. This year, it's reverse, and I would much rather have it be reverse, or I'd much rather have it be I have better faith in my coaches than my players. This is 2 straight weeks now, whether they be at at Maryland. And then it was Iowa, where both the coaches and players were on the great game plan. They did what they needed to do, and they got a good win. But then Indiana, so the sandwich games, passing the ball is working for you on early downs. That entire game. That did not change. But outside of the Blake Corum's first run, where it went 50 yards down to the 1-yard line and then got the touchdown on the subsequent play, they just basically turned it off and handed it to Corum, even though the linebackers for Indiana were just running downhill and the safeties were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Indiana's saying, we're not going to let you run the ball. You're going to have to throw to get us out of this. And Michigan goes, wanna bet? And guess what? They lost the first half because Michigan just says, wanna bet? You go up against a much better coaching staff. And let's not get it twisted. Penn State does have the better coaching staff, no matter how much we bag on Coach Franklin. You don't make that adjustment quick enough, offensively or defensively, because defensively that also was the second half, you're going to lose games that you should win. And I think Penn State's out for revenge after it lost last year. So I don't trust the Michigan coaching staff to be able to make the adjustments quick enough for the players to execute it, because I have faith that they can.
I think maybe if this game was at Penn State, I might be able to agree with you, but because I've seen Penn State. Okay?
Sure. Probably
Michigan has played a cupcake schedule, and I agree that this is going to be a tough game for them.
3 out of the bottom 11 teams in the FBS, by the way.
Yeah.
Michigan's played non-conference.
after Colorado blew one of my Friday picks last week. Colorado State blew one of my. They were one of the only non winless teams. Now It's only Colorado. I don't know what it is about that state apparently, but
it's the weed.
They just have not, unless they started clicking in the past 2 weeks. They have just not been clicking. They've been letting athletes kind of cover them. Their running back is legit, so this is going to be a great test for him. He's a great freshman. I think he's, a Penn State, a Pennsylvania guy.
He is.
But, if the defense can show up like they did, and then the game's over. It's going to be a low-scoring game, but the game's over. And I think you can make enough defensive adjustments, and I think you and I both agree that after halftime, we said this on the thing, I think Mike Hart going out really affected the team overall, and I think halftime recentered their emotions and got them going. So if we start out at a baseline of 0 and we're home and Hart's on the sideline, maybe not coaching, but on the sideline,
or in the booth,
all of the sudden we have a Michigan team that can compete with Ohio State and should have no problem running over Penn State. Beating Penn State. I'll be nice to Penn State.
No,
I think Penn State's...
Penn State has a legitimate defense. Their defense is just as good as Michigan's, in my opinion.
It's not as good as it was last year, much like Michigan's.
Probably.
When was Micah Parson on it? 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
That was like 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't that good of a defense. Honestly, I don't know what it is about Penn State running backs, but you got another one.
Yeah.
You got another one, and he's good. But let's move on, because you're going to cover it more.
Yeah.
Other 12 o'clock games of note, Ole Miss taking on Auburn. I would guess this is Auburn.
How has Brian Harsin not been... Just fire the dude. You're going to fire him at the end of the season anyway.
I was literally just about to say he's probably going to get fired after this game.
You should have fired him after the Georgia game. Like, at this point, you're just hoping he leaves so you don't have to pay his buyout. You're hoping to fire him with cause so you don't have to pay his buyout. Neither of which are going to happen, because if you try to fire him with cause, he's going to sue you. Then you're going to have to settle with him for the same amount of money as the buyout. So just fire him now and pay the buyout. Go get someone else. Move on.
Yeah, this is their start of hell. They got Ole Miss this week, Arkansas next week, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Western Kentucky, Alabama. So
they could lose all those games.
He's probably going to get fired after this game. Both me and Makai like the guy as a coach. From what we've seen of him, we're not hating on Brian Harsin's, but clearly Auburn's not happy with him. So moving on. Number 19, Kansas takes on Oklahoma. Obviously, as we say, their Heisman contender at the time.
Yeah.
Is not going to play, so their backup, their starter last year, is going to play.
Here's what I don't understand is Oklahoma is favored by 9 points.
That's just because welcome.
Did we see the game? And meanwhile, this was a 3-point game last year in Lawrence. Oklahoma's defense is Swiss cheese, and Kansas, the backup, Jason Bean, is still pretty good.
They trust him. They clearly trust him.
Yeah,
I'm taking Kansas in that one. I don't. Iowa State takes on number 22 Texas. Poor Matt Campbell. He is having 2 bad years back to back after having a great year. He is going to get trounced because he is going to Texas.
Yeah, and they're much like Iowa. They're in-state rivals where it's a great defense and just not offense.
Their offense when they had, what was it, Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that name correctly? That's when they were good. Number 24 takes on Minnesota. Number 24, Illinois takes on Minnesota, and that's kind of, the vestiges of the 12:30 games. Most of our action is at the 3 o'clock games. Makai, go ahead.
For the West, Minnesota, Illinois, when Mohamed Ibrahim plays, Minnesota is 4-0. When he doesn't play, they are 0-1. Their offense very heavily centers around Mohamed Ibrahim. I guess he's playing because they're favored on the road at Illinois, but this again is another step.
They are.
I missed that. If Minnesota wins this game, They get Penn State next week on the road again, which a game, that'll be the whiteout game for Penn State. So all I'm saying is Minnesota can win the West with a couple good weeks here.
For sure. I think the big news, speaking of the West, except I think they're technically in the East. So, speaking of directions, now I have to double-check my work. It doesn't say. Why would my life be easy? Tennessee at Alabama. I believe this is on CBS. It is at 3:30.
The third Saturday in October. That's what this game is called.
That's right. Because all of the games in the SEC have rivalry names. It's worse in the Big Ten.
Hey, what are we going to call this rivalry game between Bama and Tennessee? They don't really like each other. Rocky Top, Roll Tide, What are we going to call this? Well, when's the game? Well, it's on a Saturday in October. Which Saturday? I don't know. The third one? Let's call it that. Call it what? The third Saturday in October? Yeah! Rocky Top! That's exactly how that conversation
There probably
went
was
down.
a Tennessee person, too. The game is in Knoxville.
Yes.
I want to see. Alabama has looking shaky. They're getting 7.5 right now.
Well, last week against Texas A&M, their true freshman quarterback, 2 fumbles and an interception, and that's the only reason A&M was able to stay in the game. Because if you watch the game, which I did, you're just like, Alabama's dominating this game. Their defensive line is just pressuring the quarterback the whole game. They're stopping the run. And then you look up with a minute left, and A&M has the ball, and they're driving, and you're like, okay, well, this is just for a garbage time touchdown. No, it was for the win. They're down 4. What are we doing here? So turnovers kind of shaped that game a little bit. A&M showed up with a good game plan defensively and then did what they could offensively because their quarterback situation is trash. Gonna be fun. Gonna be entertaining. Game day's back in Rocky Top. So Pat McAfee is going to be drunk the entire game day more than likely, which will be just as funny. It'll be entertaining. And that's one of my big 5, so we'll leave it there.
Okay, we'll come back to that later. Tennessee is 4-1 against the spread. This is the interesting fact. Alabama is 4-2 against the spread.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Alabama having not the quite Nick Saban year that we thought they were going to have. At 3:30 in Fort Worth, Texas, we got number 8 Oklahoma taking on number 3 TCU.
So, Simeon, you still like the runners-up last year that everyone seems to be forgetting in the Big 12, Oklahoma State. They are road underdogs. They are, I would think, the better team against TCU, but everyone was impressed with TCU's road win against Kansas last week. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of points. Spencer Sanders isn't turning the ball over. That's another one of my Big 5 games, so I'll get to that later. But the 3:30 slate is loaded.
TCU's getting -4 right now. I think TCU can win this game if they played as well as they did against Kansas because they looked really good against Kansas.
They did.
But they play better defense than runners-up last year. Again, another one of your games, I know, but you have to mention it. Somehow, at 18, is ranked this team from northern New York called Syracuse.
Yeah.
They call that upstate New York. They don't call it Western because we're all weird. Anything north of... Yeah, anyway. So
just like North Carolina's
number 15,
the deep south.
Right, North Carolina's in the deep south because that's logical. Number 15, North Carolina State, is going to the JMA Wireless Dome in Syracuse. That's what it's called now.
Okay, great.
And taking on number 18, Syracuse, on the ACC network.
Yeah, so I am not impressed with North Carolina State. They've been too much up and down this year. They kind of walked into Death Valley into a booby trap that we all saw coming, and they, sprung the trap, and it didn't end well for them. Syracuse has quietly been under the radar. Probably should have lost to Purdue earlier in the year. Did not, so here we are at 5-0. not only can Syracuse score points, 38 points per game, they're only giving up 14 points per game as well. North Carolina's only giving up about 16 points a game, and they're score about 30, so it's roughly even. But Syracuse, I think, is people's kind of surprise team here.
Both teams beat UConn, by the way.
Great story. Great story in general. And that's really all I have to say, because that's another one of my Big Five games. I'm taking, for the first time ever in 4th and 1 podcast history, and I don't know if this is true or not, I'm doing one from every Power 5 conference.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
They're getting 3.5 on the spread. They're 4-1 against the spread compared to the NC State Wolfpack at 2-4. So take that for what it's worth.
They're 5-1. What are you reading?
Against the spread.
Oh, against the spread.
Against the spread.
All right. I'm paying attention now.
We're subtly a betting podcast now.
Well, I'll tell you what you want to know. You just got to ask. Drop a comment in the comment box.
Yo, Middle Tennessee Stadium is called Johnny Red Floyd Stadium. There's literally a nickname in the stadium name. Just find that funny. Good. I don't know why you wouldn't just call it Red Stadium or Red Floyd Stadium. Anyway, one game that I have to mention, we'll move down to the 7:30 games, but a sneaky little one here, which I think is important for the state of the Big Ten. At 4 p.m. on Fox, a team from Madison takes on a team from East Lansing. And here's why I think it's a big deal. If Wisconsin, with the piss-poor season that they've had, and I think it's fair to call it piss-poor.
By their standards.
Beats Michigan State in East Lansing. How concerned for Mel Tucker, as just a coach, not as his job, as a coach, should we be? Because to me, I'm running around like Charlie Day smoking a cigarette pointing at the wall.
Oh, no, that's 100% spot on. It is, again, if I may, was hired in 2020 COVID year, went 2-5, did not look good, but beat Michigan, so okay, whatever. Last year went 11-2 and beat Michigan. But what people didn't realize was how bad his defense was with him being a defensive-minded coach. It is panic time in East Lansing. It is wholesale changes time in East Lansing that Mel Tucker needs to make, because if he doesn't, and they have the same performance next year, I guarantee that those boosters in East Lansing are pulling out the checkbooks, buying him out, and going and getting someone different. Because this is pathetic. It is every single game, and every year he's been there, it is the same story. It's like if Jim Harbaugh never adjusted and never fired Don Brown and just was like, oh yeah, we'll beat Ohio State with press man-to-man coverage and just bringing blitzes all day. It's just not going to work. So Harbaugh moved on, made changes, finally beat Ohio State.
Sparty is 2-4, 0-3 in the conference. They have lost their last 4 games. They are 1-4 against the spread. So not doing too hot compared to Wisconsin, coming off a 42-7 victory against Northwestern.
Jim Leonard, again, throwing his hat in the ring. If he can get this team to finish strong, get them to a bowl game, he's thrown his hat in the ring to be head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers.
Yeah, because they fired their coach 2 weeks ago after the Ohio State loss, right?
Correct.
Okay. Or agreed to spread, go their separate ways, whatever the one is. Okay, moving down to the later game, 7:30 on the SEC Network. We got number 16 Mississippi State, who came out of the gate drunk and are still there, taking on number 22 Kentucky, who has fallen from grace. This is at Kroger Field in Lexington.
Kentucky lost last week to South Carolina without Will Levis. Really still don't have a running game. They're hurt. They're undisciplined. They need to kind of right the ship here. They need a big-time win. This would be one way to do it. Meanwhile, Mississippi State, it seems like every year, or whoever Mike Leach is coaching, they have a great start to the season and things are going well, and then they suffer some devastating loss where they should win, and then their season just falls off a cliff. So I'm waiting for that to happen with Mike Leach and Mississippi State. Maybe that comes in a few weeks to Bama. I don't know.
They lost. They're 5-1. I didn't realize that, first of all, which puts them. Where does that put them? Mississippi State. It puts them in the middle in the East, which is
West.
the one that Alabama's in.
West.
In the West. It puts them middle in the West. But they're 5-1. Their only losses to LSU. Reminder: 2 weeks ago they beat Texas A&M by 20. They beat up on Arkansas by 23
last week. Yep.
Last week. The remainder of their conference games are Kentucky and Alabama next week, then Auburn, then Georgia, then Eastern Tennessee.
Wow. See, and this,
then Ole Miss.
And this is what I'm talking about. Like, they'll be really. These Mike Leach teams to be really good. Yeah. You know, they should beat Kentucky, and then it's like, okay, but they'll probably lose to Bama and they'll lose to Georgia, but they're still a pretty good team. And then all of a sudden they'll lose to Kentucky, get throttled by Alabama, Georgia. Auburn will somehow beat them, and then they'll finish, 1-3 or whatever. And you're looking at the end of the season, and you're like, what happened to Mississippi State? I don't get it. And it's always with Mike Leach's teams, always and forever. Amen.
So you have a chance. Mississippi's getting -7 against for the spread. Sorry, not against the spread. I don't know where my brain is tonight, but the big game that I know Micaiah wants to talk about.
Oh, do I?
I would almost guarantee you.
Okay.
Is number 7 USC
Yeah.
going to Salt Lake to take on number 20 Utah. This is 8 p.m. on Fox.
So Utah, with a loss to Florida, still very much in the Pac-12 race, with a loss to Florida and then a loss to UCLA, entered a top 10 team, all of a sudden is on the verge of being unranked and 4-3. Nighttime, Utah, probably going to be a blackout, red out, whatever they call it down there in the Utes, land of the Utes. USC's first real test. Utah's stingy defense historically hasn't been so stingy this year. Like I said last week to UCLA, gave up 42 points to them, and they've kind of given up a decent amount of points along the way, no matter who they face. Offense is legit. This is the type of game that was circled on the calendar by both teams early in the season. It's another great test, and I would dare to say it is their USC's first real test. They've been tested before, Fresno State, Washington State last week. That's all kind of been at home. We are now, Oregon State was on the road. They did not perform well on the road in a hostile environment. You want to talk about hostile? I will give you Premier League soccer fans hostile in Utah, okay? And then I will one-up you and give you rioting during a power outage in Los Angeles hostile. This thing, it's going to be loud, and Caleb Williams, things weren't going well last week against Washington State through the first half or so of that game. Caleb Williams was throwing a pity party to the point where Lincoln Riley had to go sit on the bench and really talk to him and get him out of his funk. So the Primadonna act that Caleb Williams is throwing is continuing, and if you want to be Primadonnas and you want to do all that against Utah, Utah is going to take your game plan, shove it right up your butthole, and then turn around and hand the ball off to their running back and say, stop it. So this is going to be a great game, going to be a fun game. We're going to go late into the night, probably going to get done 11:30, midnight. Baseball will be on other channels. Postseason baseball is fun to watch, can be. So we're going to have some fun with it.
I'm interested. I'm now, as is my custom, because this is what I do, because I'm hot and I'm cold, I am now going through all of the group of 6 games.
Yep.
or most of them, the ones that I think will be interested, and making my 5 picks.
Okay.
So, per usual, this is where I hand it off to you.
Yeah,
and let jab,
me
cross,
cook. Let Russ cook. Except I'm doing a better job than he is currently with the Broncos.
Well, Dick, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Speaking of, there was a guy who put $25 on no touchdowns being scored this past week in the Denver Broncos game. Mm-hmm. He hit it.
Yeah.
And got like $2,500.
Nice. Way to be.
So, cool. You paid for him, and now you can't win
And this
anything.
is what you're getting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen. So, if you follow the podcast Instagram page, or if you don't follow it, go follow it. I am 3-2. I also made an announcement on there. My laptop died. It currently won't boot up. I'm sending that out to get fixed. Whatever. I'm currently borrowing my wife's laptop. Why is this a big deal? Because I lost my record for betting. I went back. I didn't save it in the cloud. I know. Shame on me. Shame on me. I believe I am 19-15. For those of you who are keeping track at home, feel free to correct me, text me, comment down below, whatever. Call me wrong, nanny foo-foo. I'm good with it. I do know for a fact I went 4-1 the week before and 3-2 after going 1-4 3 weeks ago. So I'm back on top. I'm back making you money. I do know I'm 4 games above 500. I think I'm 19-15. So, with that being said, we're going to go with 19-15 and roll it forward. Everything's on the cloud now. Number 10, Penn State walking into a maze out in Ann Arbor. I'm glad I'm entertaining because I got nothing else to show for it. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be fun. Not quite as rowdy as Utah, but it's going to be fun. I don't like it's at noon. I don't like that the maze out, whatever. I already went over this. However, Michigan might wear all maze jerseys. If they do, Penn State by 1,000,000 points. But I will get to whenever they wear the...
When they broke out the all-maze jersey, that was against Florida, and they won that game.
Yeah, and then they've lost every game
And then it all
since.
went downhill.
Yeah, and then they lost every game since, including one to Florida in the bowl game 2 years later. So, they are the same team offensively. They want to pound the rock. Michigan averages 212 offensively running the football. Penn State averages like 192. Penn State averages 250 through the air. Michigan averages like 237. Okay? They're very balanced teams offensively. They both want to run the rock. Both defenses allow under 100 yards rushing. So, they are the exact same team in except one key difference, and that is the secondary. Michigan allows about 187 yards passing. Maybe even less than that. Penn State averages like 212. Okay? Whose secondary do you like better? That's what this is going to come down to. Okay? And unfortunately, I like Penn State's just a little bit better because of Joey Porter Jr. This is me hating on Michigan a little bit also because of how I talked about their coaching staff is late to adjust to things that other teams are doing. You can take this back to the head coach's philosophy. Jim Harbaugh probably should have fired Don Brown after the second time they got blown out by Ohio State, but he waited until a third time they got blown out by Ohio State, and then they only mutually agreed to part ways. So, I'm taking Penn State and their veteran coaching staff, especially on the coordinator side, because my faith is still very low in James Franklin, to make up the 6.5. So you're taking Penn State plus 6.5, and unfortunately, coming off of a bye that Penn State is, that makes up that normally. I think Michigan ends up losing, which then sets up Michigan's got to win out, get some luck, and hope Penn State loses not once, but 2 more times during the regular season. Number 3 Roll Tide is headed to Rocket Tennessee in Knoxville. It's going to be checkered. It's going to be awesome. The only reason Tennessee's going to have a chance is if they wear all their smoky gray uniforms, which they wore last week. Those things are dope AF, ladies and gentlemen. Tennessee, if you're going to do it right now. This is your best shot because Bryce Young coming off of an injury, he's going to play. That defensive line starting to finally cook for Alabama. However, Tennessee's defensive line is very good as well. Bama is balanced both on both running and passing, especially in recent weeks. Tennessee
stroke.
Yes. Tennessee gives up 370 passing yards a game. 307 passing yards a game. Now, most of this is because Tennessee scores about 48 points a game, so teams are trying to keep up with them, and they have to throw the ball a lot. But Bama knows this. Bama's going to turn around, hand the ball off to Jahmyr Gibbs and McClellan, and they're going to pound Rocky Top, and then Bryce Young is healthy. They're going to do it. However, Hendon Hooker's going to get his, so Bama wins the game. But because they're 7.5-point favorites, you don't mess with any of that. The over 64.5, and I think it goes over because Tennessee knows how to score points, and Bama's defense has been allowing points this year. The Cowboys from OK State, ladies and gentlemen, going to America's least favorite team because they beat America's most favorite team, TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. Okay, Spencer Sanders not turning the ball over like he did last year, which led to tragic losses. And he's being explosive this year. This offense is averaging over 500 yards per game. They're averaging over 40 points per game. Their defense is worse with the loss of Jim Knowles to Ohio State, but hey, guess what? That's life in the Big 12. You're going to have to outscore people. TCU, Max Duggan only has 1 interception on the year. They are averaging just stupid amount of yards and points a game. Both defenses give up over 400 yards of offense. Here's the thing. The runners-up have been looked down. Mike Gundy in the underdog role has always excelled, especially on the road. In the last 11 games where he is the underdog on the road in the Big 12, Simeon, do you know what happened?
He lost?
He won.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So guess what? It's OK State plus 3.5. I think the over-under is 67. You're getting a little high, close to 70 for me to be able to touch that, but I love Oklahoma State getting 3.5 on the road because this is what they do. TCU also, again, I think Kansas, that they got a little too much credit for last week's win. Number 7, USC going to rough and rowdy Utah at night. It is a 5 p.m. local kick, so it will be dark by the time the game's over. They are almost identical in yards per game defensively and offensively. USC is only giving up 40 more yards defensively than Utah, so that's about where these teams are. USC is the underdog on the road. I trust that Lincoln Riley is going to have his team fired up. I trust that he's going to keep Caleb Williams from being a prima donna. And I'm not really liking what I see out of Utah's defense. Offense good, but where's that win the line of scrimmage defense? USC is another underdog, 3.5 points, which you chalk that up to the crowd noise and the crowd. I'm taking USC plus 3.5. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, 4 games over 500. Listen to me. And finally, the Wolfpack of North Carolina State going to the Superdome of the North, and that is Syracuse. Syracuse all of a sudden is ranked. Who is Syracuse? Why are they named after a color? Why is their mascot a fruit? All these questions will be answered on
they won't.
Saturday afternoon. Shut up, Simeon. Syracuse, coming off of a bye week, has a stingy defense, only allowing 14 points per game, allowing 271 yards per game as well. The over's 43.5. I like Syracuse to win. That might be the bet there. The over is 43.5. I like that as well because I think both these teams muck around and it is a 24-21 type game. So, Penn State plus the points. Alabama, Tennessee go over the 64.5. TCU loses at home, plus for Oklahoma State the 3.5. USC is getting 3.5. Take that on the road. And Syracuse to win. If you don't like that, you take the over. I am hot. Simeon is not. We're getting his picks. I'm excited for Week 7, ladies and gentlemen.
The state of my hair should tell you. I mean, I am too, for the record. But the state of my hair should tell you kind of what I'm expecting out of this one, guys. This is rough.
Okay.
This one was hard for me because the nice part about the group of 6 is once they settle in, nothing really changes. You know who's good and you know who's not.
All right.
And we're in week 6, so you know who's good and you know who's not. We have, of the 5 bets that I'm making, 4 of them are over-unders.
Okay. I like it.
So we have completely switched it up.
Yeah.
We started off with just straight-up picks. Now we're going over-unders because you look at these teams against the spread. You look at these teams against anything. It could go either way. I did a lot of MAC schools, but we're going to start in the Fun Belt.
All right. Yeah.
Old Dominion at Coastal Carolina.
Come on.
This one's a toss-up. Over-under 56.5. I don't really got anything. It's close. They're at 53. They both allow 53 points a game if you combine them. They both can score. But Coastal Carolina really averaging 35 points a game, so I'm hoping that...
How much are they favored by?
They're favored by -12. So they're going to either carry it themselves, or I'm hoping that Old Dominion can put up 21. And it could go either way. Old Dominion's 0-1 in the conference. They've actually looked pretty good thus far.
So who are you taking?
Overall. I'm taking the over at 56.5.
Alrighty, do it.
I'm hoping for the best there. Connecticut taking on Ball State.
Yeah, baby.
Over-under is at 46.5. I'm taking the under.
Okay.
These teams, just don't trust them at all. I don't think either one can put up 3 touchdowns. You look at... I have to pull this up. Ball State is putting up 25 points a game, and UConn is putting up 17. They're both allowing 30 points a game. Ball State is favored by 9.5. So
it's going to be a shootout then. This got shootout written all over it. If both these defenses are bad, man.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But then both their offenses are horrible, and UConn is allowing 400 yards of total offense on average, and is only producing 285. So, it's gonna be close, but this could be a 41-0 game or a 31-0 game, as they did as Ball State did earlier to Murray State in the year. I don't think this is going to be close at all. I think this is going to be dominant from the Ball State Cardinals. Probably going to be wrong about my first 2. We're going not too far away. We're going to Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah,
over
baby.
under 61.
Uh-oh.
I couldn't pick the spread. This is the Kent State Golden Flashes taking on the Toledo Rockets. I couldn't pick the spread.
Yeah.
They're both even against the spread. Rockets are favored by -9. I think this one has shootout written all over it. Let me make sure I'm right. But I am taking the under of 61.5.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, that's 2 unders so far. Not liking my chances.
Actually, I don't hate that, because in Kent State's last 5 games, they've given up 27, 24, 39, 10, and 33. I don't hate that.
Yeah. I'm taking the under, though, not the over.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't hate it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because they don't score a lot either.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
They don't. This one I do love. I know this was going to be for real. It's Ohio minus the points against Western Michigan.
All right.
Ohio is allowing 40 points a game.
Yeah.
But is scoring 33 points a game. I think they're going to win, and you might as well bet that they're going to win by a field goal, because that's basically all you need. I know they're not favored, so this is technically an upset. Well, they are favored in the spread, but not in the power index. So this is kind of an upset. Honestly, they've kind of been the more complete-ish team against the MAC. I mean...
You have no idea what you're talking about. Just give the people the picks and move on.
They technically are. I'm not wrong. They technically have been a more complete team against the MAC.
Well, fair enough.
But also, I have no idea. This is a weird one.
All right. Give it.
First Conference USA game that I've picked so far this year, I believe.
Here we go. Probably not.
Well, technically, I picked Old Dominion earlier. So, technically, no, I have picked a Conference USA team. It's Louisiana Monroe, not even the Raging Cajuns, taking on USA Polar Bears, I believe is their mascot. University of South Alabama in Mobile.
Yes.
Over under 51.5.
Okay.
Someone who was setting the odds clearly did not see that South Alabama likes to score the ball. 48 against Nicholls State, 38 against Central Michigan, 31 in a 1-point loss to UCLA, 38 against Louisiana Tech, and 20 in a 20-17 win against the Raging Cajuns themselves. And someone also didn't pay attention to the fact that somehow the Warhawks of Louisiana
what a
Monroe,
name.
I know, somehow scored 7 points against Alabama and have also been averaging about 20 points. And if it wasn't for that Alabama loss, they'd be averaging like 27.
Here's the problem.
So I'm taking the over on that one.
All right, great. And that's your 5, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's the problem I have. You got me all on board with Nevada and Colorado State last week, and it was 40, and the over-under was 44.5, and you made the same speech. No one knows what they're doing. And I was confident. I'm like, this dude, he's been hot. He's just coming off a 4-1 week. He's got the bugs out of his system. He is ready to roll. You hammered the sports book, but you're like, no one's paying attention. It's 44.5. That's laughably low. I did some just quick research. I was like, you know what? I agree. And you know what happened? They hit the under by a long shot. It was like 17-14 was the final score. So, my dude, what are we doing here? You're just going back to the well. You're doubling down on the sportsbook people?
Honestly, I kind of picked against the sportsbook people in every single one of these picks.
Oh, well, you know.
So,
as you do.
First of all, I am doubling down on the well. Here's the two. I'm going to give you guys the honest. I don't feel good about the Old Dominion Coastal Carolina, and I don't feel good about the Kent State and Toledo. Ohio, I'm basically taking the money line. So don't count me against the spread. However, I think, Ohio's 3-3 against the spread, and Western Michigan's 2-3-1 against the spread. So I just kind of said, hey, statistically, Ohio's better against the spread, so I'm going to pick them.
Fair enough. I will give some people some winners here because my other picks in the last podcast, I haven't been keeping track, but they've been making me a lot of money. Through my losing streak, I've actually been making money because of these other bets I've been putting out. Nebraska-Purdue, the over-under is 58.5. Nebraska's been playing pretty well since Scott Frost left. I mean, they're 2-0 since Scott Frost left. Purdue gives up a bunch of points and can score a bunch of points. So take that. Clemson minus 3.5 to Florida State on the road. I understand it's on the road, and they're going to get the Warhawk chant or whatever they call it. Whatever. Clemson's run defense is just ridiculously good. So take them minus 3.5. Mississippi State and Kentucky, the over-under is 46.5. Mississippi State's been putting up a bunch of points, and even if Kentucky's defense is good, Kentucky's also going to put up a bunch of points on Mississippi State's defense, so I like the over-under of 46.5. And then finally, Kansas getting 9 points. By the way, that line's moved 1.5 points since I did this an hour and a half ago, and that's 30 minutes before the podcast. So the line moved 1.5 points since I've been here. Someone knows something I don't know, but the fact that Kansas, that just played TCU really well, and TCU just blew out Oklahoma the week before last, is getting 9 points on the road, and Oklahoma's defense is about as good as me against an NFL Aaron Donald. Kansas plus the 9. That's all we got for you this week. We're excited. Listen, this is great stuff. We are over halfway. This has been the 4th and 1 podcast, everyone. I'm just going to wrap this up myself. That's Fancy Trash Can. I'm Captain Boring. Wash your hands, you filthy animal. 4th and 1 podcast on Instagram. God bless. Peace out.